All right, this is Hospitality and Politics. I'm Andrew Ridgie. The show is powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. And I am with my friend and neighbor, and probably someone who's known to the rest of the world as the Chief Baking Officer and CEO of Magnolia Bakery, Bobbie Lloyd. Hi, Bobbie.
Hi. Thank you for having me today, neighbor.
I'm happy you're here. So, there's a lot of great food businesses in New York City, and there's also a handful, I'd say a whole bunch of really iconic food businesses. And I feel like Magnolia Bakery fits into that bucket of being an iconic brand. And before we get into, everything that you've been doing with Magnolia, all the exciting things, I'd love if you take us back to the humble beginnings.
Magnolia Bakery is going to be 30 years old next year.
Wow.
That's kind of unbelievable for a New York City brand, right? And to still be relevant and global. Yeah. So as most people know, it started on a quiet street corner in the West Village. Used to be a little tiny shop that used to be a bird store. And many people remember it in the heyday when Sex and the City launched in early 2001. We were in a tiny little episode. I think it was all of 30 seconds on screen where Miranda and Carrie ate a vanilla cupcake with pink buttercream. And that put us on the global map. But it's still a bakery that I think what resonates with people, everything is baked from scratch using good ingredients, great quality ingredients, really good chocolate, flour, butter, sugar, eggs, chocolate, and dairy. And you can make about 1 billion things.
That's amazing. Well, I come from a bakery family, so I feel very attached to this and, connected to it. And I didn't even realize, but Sex and the City is actually back now with like a new season. So it's amazing. They're back. They're doing the show. And Magnolia is still there doing their thing all these years later. So I guess it's amazing how a TV show, obviously the bakery was there, people loved it before the show, but really gets so much attention. So what happened? After that episode aired, just what happened to the brand? Like, what was the trajectory?
It really did explode. My theory is that a Magnolia Bakery cupcake was the only affordable thing within the Sex and the City world. So people would come to New York City and maybe they couldn't afford to buy a pair of Vanilla Blahniks, but they could afford at that time a $3 cupcake.
Yeah, and I guess if you weren't old enough to get a Cosmopolitan, a Cosmo, you could also have a cupcake.
Or maybe you didn't want to go out and spend up, $100 on a bottle of vodka or something in the nightclubs. And so even in 2008, when the first movie came out, there were 10 buses a day that did a Sex and the City tour. 55 people per bus would empty out in the West Village, and they would do the Perry Street stop to see the stoop, which was supposedly Carrie's apartment, and stop at Magnolia Bakery.
And that wasn't even the apartment or something?
No, it wasn't even real. It was just the outside exterior
I saw the person who lives there put up a shade or something. It was like, do not sit here, no photos. It was just
everyone
the
wanted their picture.
Yeah, right. So, all right. So, it's funny. Now with social media, you post something about your restaurant or whatnot, it goes viral and you could have a line for days down the block. But Sex and the City, that was predating all TikTok and Instagram and everything. So you went viral before, I guess, going viral was a thing.
That's because there was a viral moment after Sex and the City. So that was 2001. I think it was 2005, 2004 when SNL did the Lazy Sunday video. It's called Chronicles of Narnia Lazy Sunday. Okay. And it was one of the first viral videos on YouTube that went worldwide. And it was a big question mark, even from SNL. It's like, can we do this? Can people do that? Can they take our content and put it on this platform? That video, if you don't know it, you got to look it up because it's so much fun. It's the two rappers. They do this thing where they're like 2, 4, 6, 8, Magnolia cupcakes. And it was guerrilla. They did not come in the store. So there was no location scouting, no requirement to come and get permission from us. They got our product and they stood outside and they filmed it. And it's hilariously funny. Wow. And it's all this experience about what do you do on a lazy Sunday?
So at that time, were you concerned like with the brand, like someone just coming and doesn't have all this approval to put this out there? Or did you just go with the flow at that time?
So at that time, I was not involved with Magnolia Bakery. It was the original owner was at that time. Wow. So, but what it did, it legitimated a cupcake for dudes. It was suddenly okay for guys to eat pink cupcakes.
See that? You
Because
just
Sex and the
needed it.
City got the female audience,
Yeah.
right, in a big way. And men kind of knew about it because, oh, my wife brought me.
Yeah.
But now you've got this Lazy Sunday Chronicles of Narnia thing where they're like 2-4. It's very funny. Like
All right, I
2-4.
will watch
You got to
that.
watch it.
Yeah.
And it became legitimate to
That's
eat cupcakes.
amazing. So what's going on with the business today? Now, you go all over, you see Magnolia, and I want to talk about scaling because I'm always fascinated how like you can be a local New York City bakery, restaurant, and then over time you start growing and what it means for the brand and how you have to change your operating procedures. But what's the state? How many Magnolias are there? Where are they?
We're everywhere.
Yeah.
I actually like to say that we are a little big company, a big little company. The perception of who we are is much, much larger than our bricks and mortar footprint.
Yeah.
We only have 10 stores in the US.
Oh, wow.
8 in New York City, 1 in Chicago, 1 in LA. And we also have a licensed store at LaGuardia Airport in the Delta Terminal. And people think of us as being much, much larger than that. We also have 38 locations internationally that are franchised. And we started doing that in 2010.
Okay. So what's your role? So I said Chief Baking Officer, which is such a great title.
Thank you.
CEO. Like, what does your day look like?
My day changes every single day, depending on which hat I'm wearing. So since 2020, I've been the CEO of the company, but I made up the title Chief Baking Officer probably about 10 years ago when I felt that at that time I had the title of president of the bakery. Just sounds so lofty, right? What does it even mean? But nobody ever understood that I actually am a baker as well. I'm not in the store baking. You won't find me behind the counter baking cupcakes, but I am the developer and creator of product and the innovator. So I come up with new things all the time and then we implement them in the stores.
How'd you get into baking?
I actually went to culinary school back in the day. But I started my culinary career when I was 8 years old. It's one of my favorite stories to tell is my mom was going back to work full time. And she came to my brother and I, who were the older ones. My sister was too young and said, well, I'm not going to get home until 5. What are you going to do to help set us up?
Wow.
And I was like, I'll cook. I'll make dinner. So my parents signed me up for a 12-week course at the local YWCA. The first week we made cinnamon toast and hot chocolate. And the last week, the 12th week, they formed us into little groups, and my team made paella.
Wow.
Now, I grew up in Illinois, outside of Chicago. Nobody had ever had paella.
Yeah.
So that was sort of what set me on my culinary journey, is I really loved food. I loved good food.
Yeah. Well, I can see, even with your staff, and I want to talk a little bit about kind of staffing and recruiting and finding people. And one of the things, I don't know if it's all of your locations, but I know many of your locations, it's kind of an open kitchen, which sometimes you see in some restaurants, but you see kind of the open bakery, kitchen. So you see people, finishing cakes, mixing. Was that always kind of part and parcel of the concept, or is that just something that kind of like evolved that way? Like, how much is the customer experience walking in and seeing people actually preparing the baked goods?
So I think it is really important to our brand that theater is part of the experience. The original Magnolia Bakery on Bleecker Street in the West Village is 643 square feet.
Yeah.
That's it. Includes the bathroom. I mean, it is everything.
Yeah.
So everything is right in front of you. You see the people baking, cake icing, cupcake icing. And so as we grew and opened more locations, we always wanted to replicate that in a sense where you felt that you could, I'll use the example. I grew up in a small-ish town. Small towns have the local bakery. And you could go to that local bakery as a little kid and you put your face up against the window. It's like, I want that cake.
Yes.
I want that cookie. I want that product. That's how we look at Magnolia Bakery. We're baking from scratch, so you should be able to see it and to know it.
Yeah.
It's part of the ethos.
Yeah, it's the connection to it. And like baked goods, and especially cakes and cupcakes, people have such a emotional connection to. I mean, if we're talking about like restaurants, people are used to and they appreciate the restaurant experience. But I think the association with baked goods, particularly cupcakes, particularly cakes, is a celebration. It's your birthday. It's some other sort of special occasion. So I think the theatrics of that, also play into that overall experience of like, wonder and excitement and sweetness and
You
goodness.
just nailed it. Wonder.
Yeah.
That's exactly, we talk about the joy. Americans celebrate everything with life celebrations with cake,
Yeah.
with dessert. Every holiday, every birthday, everything that we can think about is celebrated with dessert.
Yeah.
I have people who I've met on the street, people I've met, and I'll tell you a very funny story. Last summer, my husband and I were traveling in Ireland on a bike trip. And we met, it was an organized bike organization, and we met these 8 people, 4 couples from Utah, Salt Lake City. And they sat us down the first night, and we all sat in a big circle, and the husbands and wives had to introduce each other. My husband introduces me and he says, "This is my wife, Bobbie. She is Magnolia Bakery." And I heard a gasp. One of the guys literally got teary-eyed.
Wow.
And his wife's like smacking him on the shoulder going, "Stop it, you're embarrassing me." He goes, No, I have to tell you the story. My wife lived in the West Village. I lived in, well, at that time, girlfriend. I lived in Philly. He goes, I would take the train into Manhattan to visit her, and I would stop at Magnolia Bakery and get a banana pudding. He goes, I don't think my wife would have married me if it wasn't for the banana pudding.
See that? You're making marriages.
Yep.
One banana pudding at a time.
Yep. So it is that emotional connection to food.
Yeah. Well, you must get that a lot when you tell people like Magnolia Bakery. What's their reaction?
Everyone's got a story.
I know. Well, my daughter's so excited. You know, we came to their book signing. We'll talk about the new book and everything too. But she's been baking. She's so disappointed that my family sold the bakery, you know, right before the pandemic, and never really got an experience to work there and everything like we all did. But she got to be there. She can
come and work at Magnolia.
Well, she's ready. She's ready. She's going to be 10. She's you know, she'd be ready to work now. You know, I guess when I worked there weren't the same.
Well, I think the laws are if she's family, she could work. Yeah. So I can adopt her, and then she can come and work at Magnolia.
My family, I think, took advantage of those laws. But yes, well, she would love to. So she's baking, and she has the book, and she wants to practice, and we want to practice. So we'll bring you something over from the book. But she is also so excited. I didn't even know about this. I don't know if you know or not, but 10-year-old girls, 9-year-old girls these days are very, very excited about like skincare and lip gloss. And apparently you have a collab, Magnolia Bakery collab with Glossier.
Oh, yeah.
And all she's telling me is like, are you going to get some? And I said, yes, I'm going to get some. Can you talk about that?
It is one of the coolest collaborations that we have ever done. It is a banana pudding lip gloss. And last week, just this past week, I did an event at the Glossier headquarters here in New York City where I did a banana pudding making class. So a team of people got to make banana pudding with me, and then they got to build their own banana puddings. Wow. I put that lip gloss on my lips, and I had a reaction like, oh my God, I want to eat my lips. It tastes and smells just like our banana pudding. They did a great job. And it's a really cute little tube with this dangling like keychain thing.
Oh, I saw it. I had to go and look at it. Yes.
It's really cute.
You know, my daughter, she's always like annoying me. She wants to like, let me just put on lip gloss. I'm like, I'm not wearing your lip gloss. Just stop, please. But maybe this one, I'll let her.
You gotta taste it.
I will try. So that's exciting. So like, you know, we talk with a lot of other restaurant, bakery, nightlife people, and, you know, collabs are so big these days. I mean, all these different sectors, sneakers and everything, but you've done a couple. I know you've done work with United Airlines. You've done some others. How do those come about? Because I think like other people in the industry listening would be like, hey, I'd love to do a whatever it is, lip gloss or partner with an airline. Have you gone out and kind of solicited these types of partnerships, or just because of the notoriety of the brand, they've come to you? What's that experience on creating these? Because it gives you obviously more reach outside of just like people that are hungry for a good cupcake or cake.
Yeah. So you mentioned at the very beginning the iconic brand. Magnolia Bakery is so well known nationwide. And these collaborations help spread the news about our brand to different generations. We've done a lot of really fun things. Most of it is incoming. Okay. We do not pay.
Great.
We don't pay. And we also don't seek giant payments. Some people do collaborations because they want a big fat paycheck for it. We're not seeking that. Doesn't mean we won't take it.
Yeah, of course.
But it's also, we're not looking for, you know, a $500,000 payout to do a collaboration. We've done some really fun things over the years. Keds did a line of sneakers a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
That used all of our branding. So there were cupcakes on sneakers. There was a little tag that hung off the end of them. One of them had little sprinkle things on top of it. We also had another makeup brand that did a banana pudding body scrub. It was in 2,500 locations around the country. So it's an LTO. When it's gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
But they had us in all of these Sephoras across the country.
Yeah.
We've done, obviously, the Glossier one. So many, I can't even name them all. They're really fun. One of them was the edibles.
Oh, yeah.
That an edible chocolate company reached out to us because we used to carry pre-COVID a line of chocolate bars.
Okay.
And I was working with a manufacturer who's a local chocolatier here in New York area to create a line of 6 different bars. So there was a banana pudding bar, red velvet bar, lemon bar, sweet and salty, classic, and peanut butter and jelly. So this company, Incredibles, came to us and wanted to do a collab with THC. And so we can't sell it. Only they can sell it in the states that are licensed to sell them. But it's a Magnolia Bakery banana pudding chocolate bar.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good. So what's the process for you of like determining what other brands you're going to collaborate with? Because obviously your brand is iconic and there's so many things that are so important to the integrity of your brand. So when you're looking at these different companies, I imagine there's a pretty rigorous review that you go through. And what are the types of things you think about? Like, should I collaborate with this company? Do you have certain, I guess, metrics or certain things that you look at?
Absolutely. We want to know who they are and why do they want to collaborate with us? Do they just need social media followers? Do they bring us social media followers? It's got to be a give and a take.
Okay.
But it's also, does the brand resonate with us? So we did Boy Smells banana pudding candle.
Okay.
In fact, it was so successful for them, they did it 2 more years in a row.
Wow.
We also want to know, did that brand do something else very similar with somebody else? And if they did, we probably wouldn't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because we want to do something that's unique to us as a brand, like a banana pudding lip gloss.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's pretty cool. So that's a really big part of it. You'll also notice we don't do a lot of food collaborations because that's also very important to us, that I'm not just going to add a Cheeto to a cupcake.
Yeah.
I need to make sure that it's something that really does match the ethos of our brand. We're classic American style desserts. Doesn't mean we won't be innovative, but it means I won't be crazy.
Well, I think also you being a baker, you understand flavor profiles, you understand all these other aspects of the business that are probably core and essential to the success of Magnolia that are outside of just what a marketing person may know. Because I can imagine you could look at, another food product and be like, oh yeah, that would be a great collaboration. But because you're a baker and you see it from the other side, you're like, yeah, but for whatever reasons, that just doesn't match the right flavor profiles or the essence of what we are as a brand.
There was a very freaky, I'm not going to say the brand name. It's a type of alcohol that's really popular in Chicago.
Okay.
It's disgusting. And there was an opportunity to do a collab, and they brought it to me, and I tasted it, and I spit it out. I was like, are you kidding? Yeah. And they said, well, you could create something that has the notes or the flavors of it. And I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't care if that's going to give us some notoriety within the Chicago community, but I'm not doing it. But on the other side, Stan's Donuts, who's very popular in Chicago, came to us and wanted to do a collaboration with banana pudding. And so we did it on both sides. We used their donuts in our pudding and did an apple cider donut banana pudding. And they used our pudding in their donuts. And that worked beautifully.
So with all, you mentioned something before about generational and, the 30 years. And how do you stay? Because how do you stay relevant? I mean, is part of it doing these collabs, but what else do you think that you've done as a company to help yourself stay relevant? Because there are other cupcake brands that have, come and gone, some that have, achieved, success. But what do you credit? What do you credit that?
One is authenticity. We are very authentic, and I don't chase trends.
Okay.
We don't follow trends. We don't even want to create a trend necessarily. We want to be authentic and real on the product that we create, using really good ingredients, hiring great staff, training great staff. We have an amazing marketing team and social media team. We also capture a lot of data. And that's not something that we did 30 years ago because it didn't exist. Even when my prior partner bought the bakery from the original owner, in end of 2006, there was no website. Facebook, I think, maybe existed, but Instagram did not.
Yeah.
There was no computer in the store. There was no computerized cash register in this store. It was one of those old-fashioned, like, punch the price in and hit 1 for beverage and 2 for food. And, and a separate credit card processing machine.
Sometimes it'll get stuck. You have to pick it up and drop it.
Kick the thing. And so data drives a lot of how we continue to grow. I'm always looking at doing new things, and we try them. But you know what? If it doesn't sell, if the consumer doesn't really like it, what's the point? Don't do it anymore. You know, I don't get emotionally connected to a product. I make sure that it really is a moneymaker and the consumer wants it. There's a few things I really love in the past that, you know what, the customer didn't. So it's like, okay, save that one for the book.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Well, make it at home. What about with just like the growth? You mentioned the authenticity. You know, it can be tough for brands as they grow, as they get outside of New York City, as you can't just go from one location and pop into the other location to keep that integrity. So there's obviously like the training and standard operating procedures and everything. But are there any key things when you, Bobbie Lloyd, like walk into a Magnolia, no matter what location it is anywhere in the world, that you first go and look at to see if it's holding up that torch of authenticity?
I love that. My staff teases me because I always break open a chocolate cupcake.
And what do you look for in the chocolate cupcake?
I look for the texture being correct and no air holes. That tells me if they're making it correctly. Also, it's my favorite cupcake.
Okay.
So, because I pick one up and I tear it open and I look at the cake quality. Is it spongy? Is it soft? Is it moist? Is it delicious? I smell it. Does it smell great?
And so what's the process to have a cupcake come out like that?
So we have an incredibly well-defined system for our recipes. They're all written in the same format. I'll use our vanilla cupcake as an example. I created a recipe that I call the base. So it's, flour, eggs, sugar, butter. There's a process for mixing them. You can take that exact same recipe and swap ingredients out. So if I swap the white sugar for brown sugar, it's a caramel cake. If I swap the milk for strawberry puree, it's a strawberry cake. There are 15 recipes that I can create using that one vanilla base. Exactly.
That's incredible.
So we teach people how to bake by learning technique. And so our recipes are designed by this recipe is a creaming technique. This recipe is a whisking or oil-based, which means you don't use a mixer. And so once they learn that technique, they can do anything.
So when you're hiring people and they come in, is there, do they have to be a baker or can they come in? Is it standardized enough where they can come in, they learn the general philosophy and the processes and you can put them in there? Like, how do you train people to start baking? They need
some basis of baking. We have trained people who've never baked before. The training curve is just a little bit longer. We have locations all over the world. One of the things that we learned when we opened our first location in Dubai 15 years ago was that our international executive chef, this dude is a high-level pastry chef, way beyond my experience. I mean, he's worked in giant hotels for big airlines. He's worked for manufacturing businesses. He's developed product. He had never made American-style desserts.
Wow.
So we still had to teach him some of our techniques. Some of the American style, which most American cakes and cookies start with cream the butter.
Yeah.
You do that for how long? It says 3 to 5 minutes. Well, what does that mean? What am I looking for? And so we have to teach the nuances of cream the butter. Then it's add the sugar. There's also nuances to that. So it's how and when and at what speed do I add the sugar until what?
Yeah.
And so when we write recipes, we ask ourselves those questions all the time. Until what? You have to answer the question in the recipe because otherwise your baker doesn't know what they're looking for.
So that's caution in the wind to something that I'm doing. I was just with my aunt the other day and I said, you still have all the recipes from our family's bakery, and she does. So she's going to scan them and she's going to send them to me. The problem is, they're bakery size portion. So I was like, well, we'll try to figure it out. I'll throw it in ChatGPT and see if it can, shoot out, okay, here are the actual, amount proportions that I need. But there is also that kind of feel and that work in baking. Baking's very mathematical as well. We're cooking, use a little too much salt or oil or this, you can modify it. There's certain things in baking, if you don't use the right measurements, you're just not going to have anything.
Or the right technique.
Yes. And then but you do have the technique that goes into it. So we're going to get those recipes and see if we can do, smaller home size portions by putting
It's hard
ChatGPT
sometimes to
the-
actually scale down. Like
Yeah.
ChatGPT might be able to do the math,
Yeah.
but sometimes depending on how large it gets,
Yeah.
it actually, you have to change the ratio of ingredients
I'm gonna ask
because
in
maybe
all
it was in
different
a type
ways.
of a mixer that had a certain speed or a certain paddle or a certain whisk.
See, I know.
Yep.
These are the challenges.
it's a
We're going to see.
challenge.
We're going to try to put as much information and inform it. So I may ask you some questions and I need to input into ChatGPT when we ask it to give us the
formulation.
the formulations. But that's right. That was just a total sidetrack. Going back to your people, hiring the right people as you grow, having people that are happy. Obviously, dessert, cakes, this is all like fun, exciting stuff. So you need people that are going to be equally as fun and excited to be working in a bakery selling all of these exciting items. And because you have that open kitchen style where you see people, baking, it's, they don't want to be sitting there frowning. So what's your process for recruiting and training people and really teaching them the Magnolia way?
We have people who have been with us, and I'm not kidding, 2 of them for 27 years.
Wow.
2 of our bakers. They love what they do. They love the camaraderie. They love the joy that they get to have every day at work. And then we have a lot of people who've been with us for over 15 years. We do an annual, what we call our Sweets Gala. Our mission statement is SWEET. S stands for sincere service. W is wholeheartedly. The first E is enterprising, second one is extraordinary, and the T is together. And doing a Sweets Gala where we recognize people and we give awards, and we gave some of our long-term kitchen people chef coats with their name on it.
Very nice.
And people cried.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible to see that we celebrate you and we want you to celebrate us. Part of how we recruit is it's all against our sweets values. We look at how we create our job descriptions, how we create our job postings. What are we looking for in the person? We want people who fit those 5 letters.
Got it.
Because you could check off a list of check, they can do the job. But if somebody comes to the table with a big ego, they're probably not going to work out at Magnolia Bakery, because there are people who operate with the my way or the highway. Like, I'm thinking it has to be this way and only this way. They're not part of a team. Yeah. They're not working together. Yeah. And so we have some incredible people that work for us, and I'm just so proud. And when people ask me what I'm most proud of, that is what I am most proud of, is building an incredible team of people.
Yeah. Well, that's great too, because it allows you then to focus on other aspects of growing the business instead of having to be involved in like every little thing and, worrying that people aren't conveying, the brand to the consumer.
I think one of the things that I had the benefit of in my career in the early days in New York City, I worked at Union Square Cafe with Danny Meyer. Side by side with Danny, he had one restaurant. Yeah. And we created a team excellence that was going to take it from a 2-star restaurant to a 3-star restaurant. So my background is actually fine dining. Okay. And so taking the principles of fine dining and incorporating it into a quick service business where you get your customer for 3 minutes versus 2 hours is challenging. But we always talk about lead with kindness, lead with humanity.
So the steps of service may be different and the product even different, but there are certain fundamental principles to how you prepare and how you serve that cross over, whether you're in fine dining or you're in a limited service.
100%.
Bakery.
And never waver. Yeah. Like that's another, for me, that's incredibly important is there are things we could do to be more, I don't want to say more efficient, but more cost effective. Yeah. But if it's going to affect our service or it's going to affect the quality of the product, I won't do it. We'll find another way to save money.
What's been the most rewarding thing for you personally on this journey with Magnolia?
It's been a long journey. I've been with the company. It'll be 19 years this year, right? That's a long time. Yeah. And I think the most rewarding thing, as I sort of mentioned earlier, was building the teams. Yeah. Across many different channels. We are now an omni-channel business. And so I'm hiring people for roles that I never even knew these titles existed before. Sure. So we're in the CPG business. There's a whole catalog of words that they use.
Yeah, CPG, so consumer packaged goods, right?
Yep.
That's another thing I hear restaurant people and food service people talk about getting into. And, you see now you go to the grocery store and I'm amazed how many, like tomatoes, pasta sauces there are from different restaurants and everything. How did you decide to get into it, and what do you think other people should know? If you have a restaurant or another food business, retail, and you're looking to get into grocery stores and other types of retail shops, what are some tips and what have you learned along the way?
Number one, CPG is incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
So we're almost 30 years old. For 15 years, we've been doing international franchising. For 14 years, we've been doing e-commerce that we built, which is also a challenging business. And we were acquired by RSC Ventures in 2021. And part of the acquisition was the desire to launch a product in CPG.
Part of the acquisition of Magnolia Bakery was too.
Yeah, the RSC wanted us to really look into creating a product that we could launch into CPG. Because if it makes it, if you get a product in CPG that makes it, you could sell it for a lot of money.
Sure.
So it's harder to sell bricks and mortar businesses than it is to sell a CPG product. So we worked on two things. One was a shelf-stable cookie, which is still in market. And the second one was something I had been working on for almost 18 years, was how to get banana pudding on a grocery shelf or into the market outside of the daily fresh pudding. Incredibly challenging.
Yeah.
What I will say to people about CPG is it's very, very expensive to get into.
Yes.
You're going to pay slotting fees. You're going to pay trade, promotion, marketing. There's an enormous expense behind all of that. So you've also got to do huge volume. Yeah. And that is hard to do.
Yeah. And you need a brand, if you have a brand, you can get there and people recognize it when they go to the shelf and they see these different options. Why are they going to pick one they don't know over this other iconic brand that they're familiar with, that they've had? But I remember when I was young, my grandfather talking about it, like there's a local grocery store. I think they're still around, but he would, tried one time selling, trays, but he got so frustrated with the whole thing because, it sat there. If it didn't sell, they would keep it out for an extra day or something, and he'd get furious because then it was stale and he didn't want them selling it. And then it took so long for the grocery store to actually pay because, you had to give everything up front. And, for a small business like that, it was just, and this is years ago, just it wasn't worth the headaches. And then what you said, going back and redoing the recipes so it can be shelf stable.
Oh yeah, we hired an R&D scientist. Yeah. So I created the benchmark product, which was a banana pudding cookie. Yeah. Everybody absolutely loved it on my team. Now we got to send it out to a scientist to say, turn this into something that's shelf stable while using real butter, real bananas, and no garbage.
Yeah.
So that's a real challenge, which means it's going to be premium and expensive. Yeah. The other side of CPG that's also difficult is that it's very difficult to get into the distributors, and you can't get on grocery store shelves if you're not in a distributor. And they don't just take any product every day. So it is a big challenge. Personally, I don't know if I'm a fan yet. Yeah. I think there's other avenues and ways to get into markets that are what we call non-traditional food service.
You were shipping though before you did CPGs,
We've had
officially?
E-commerce,
okay, so.
Since we launched the e-commerce in 2011. So we have a commissary where we shipped banana pudding, cupcakes, cakes, cookies, pies.
And that's all fresh. And it's also heavy to ship, so it's expensive to ship. And then keeping
But there is
fresh.
a market for it. So you ship fresh, but certain things you have to ship frozen, like cupcakes. You've got to freeze them. They won't arrive safe and sound, but it's overnight shipping. Yeah. So it is expensive.
Yeah. I think it's like knowing the brand because I can totally see someone wanting to ship Magnolia to someone across the country, things, like Katz's. There's certain New York brands where I feel you'll do it and people will be really excited, but it's figuring out that pun intended or no pun intended, the recipe to be able to do it all.
Yeah. Most of the time in the food world, e-commerce is around what we call the tent poles: Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas, the big holidays. That's when people gift.
Yeah.
So most e-commerce businesses, it's your fourth quarter when you're going to be really busy because gifting is so high.
Yeah.
During the year, it's like grandma sends a cake to somebody because they grew up in New York and they love, banana pudding or cake from Magnolia Bakery.
Yeah. But you also then need to be able to keep up with the orders, right? The purchase orders. I mean, that's like the other thing is, you get inundated on Valentine's Day or whatever holiday it may be.
For pros.
Yeah, you really need to be doing. So, if you try to get into that area and, all of a sudden you hit it big, which you can now, like social media, you just could go viral, get huge number of orders on something and completely not be ready to fulfill those orders.
It has happened too, especially during COVID when it happened so quickly where everybody was ordering online. To get the packaging was really difficult because think of every company down the supply chain and what problems existed with supply chain and logistics during COVID. We could make the pudding, but we were having trouble getting the containers to put it in. So
I imagine there's some important specs to your containers and your packaging with your branding.
Very much so. Also, just how you have to ship frozen food. There's a lot of, not laws, but requirements for yourself. You got to test the packaging, look at how it fits in the box, no airspace in it. You fill it up with crunched up paper and tape and all kinds of craziness. But we had a lot of fun times during crazy COVID period where we would suddenly get ordered for the next day where we had to make 5,000 units of 16-ounce units of banana pudding fresh, and it would be all hands on deck. Everybody would show up. Everyone from the office would be there packing pudding.
That's intense. Yeah, it reminds me, our mutual friend Susan Povich from Red Hook Lobster. I don't know if she told you this story. Oh, maybe you're on the panel when she was talking about, this wasn't for shipping, but it was, they did like the lobster cone at one of the markets and like it crazy went viral. And all of a sudden they had, this line just for, days long and it's trying to figure out how do you kind of keep up with demand, keep people happy and everything. Switching from consumer product, packaged goods to, you mentioned franchising. So that's another thing I feel like people talk about and try to figure out, like, how's that experience from going corporate owned stores that you have control over, you're there to, franchising out and kind of giving at least a lot of the control over to some other person.
So franchising kind of happened by accident for Magnolia Bakery. Bloomingdale's was opening in Dubai in 2010, and they came to us and they wanted Magnolia Bakery, our iconic brand, to be part of this. They built this thing, was like a little streetscape with little Magnolia and New York style businesses on each side of it. And Magnolia Bakery was on the very front of the mall. I went there to do the training, set it up. I'm standing at the grand opening. It was a big deal. They had the building completely shrouded. We're across from the Burj Tower in the Dubai Mall, which is huge. I have Marvin Traub, who at the time was the chairman of the board for Macy's and Federated, in a wheelchair next to me. The CEO of Bloomingdale's on the other side of me. And they dropped the shroud, this big, huge black curtain. It's a huge media event. And a group of women scream, "Oh my God, it's Magnolia Bakery."
Wow.
Yeah. And they looked at me and it was like, okay, we get it.
Yeah.
We get it. What we didn't realize at the time that Dubai was the gateway to the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia would come through Dubai. Russia would come through Dubai. Everybody came through Dubai. We kind of thought like, hey, if it doesn't work, no one's going to know it's Dubai.
Yeah.
The opposite happened. All of a sudden, everywhere, people are knocking on our door. We want a franchise. And we grew very quickly in a short period of time. We had locations all over the world, Russia, Mexico, Japan, South Korea, all over the Middle East, the Philippines, India, kept growing like crazy. And so internationally, it's actually more difficult to open a new territory because you have to work with supply chain and logistics, and we bake from scratch.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to ask. So what's that? I mean, have you had to turn down locations, or do you like, I don't know, what's that process? Because I can imagine being somewhere, not having access to your suppliers, and you have to maintain that brand, figure out how do you get something there that normally doesn't ship there.
So in the beginning, we did do a lot of shipping from the U.S., even things like butter.
Yeah.
They don't have butter in the Middle East. It's got to come from somewhere. And French butter doesn't work in our recipes. The fat content is too high. Okay. Japan doesn't have butter. So we had to work all the logistics out. We had a supply chain team to help manage that. Even the construction materials, there are things that are made in the U.S. that are distributed from the U.S. that are part of the brand and the look of our stores. Yeah. So, but over the years, we've evolved. There's really only one product now that most of the time has to be exported, and that's vanilla wafers. Because vanilla wafers are so specific to the U.S. as a cookie, other countries don't have an alternative. And to make our banana pudding, you have to have the vanilla wafer, and it has a very specific texture. You know how they snap? Sure. When you fold, it's that texture has to be right. So we're still exporting that, but pretty much everything else is being purchased locally. Our executive chef will go into the market after signing the franchise agreement and work on they'll work out, we have specification sheets for every ingredient, and they work in the local market to see, is there an alternative here? And if there isn't, either they have to import it, or we've actually had franchisees who will manufacture certain things. In Turkey, they found a manufacturer to make sweetened condensed milk, so they don't have to import it. It's much cheaper that way.
See, who would have thought from a little bakery in the West Village that it would be here today, and you start thinking about all these complexities. And I always think, for the most part, like you said, people think of Magnolia like it's this big brand, has a big name and a big impact, but it really is.
It's a small company.
It's a small company, and it's like people that are involved in all this. Yeah. You're still working on the recipes and going out. How often are you going out to the new locations now? I mean, you mentioned that the executive baker, chef goes out. Are you going and checking
Not so
out?
much internationally. Okay. We have a team because we have a lot of different countries now and a lot of locations. But domestically, we just started franchising as well. Okay. So we just got our U.S. FDD in April of this year, and we just closed a deal with our first franchisee in Salt Lake City.
Congratulations.
So a deal for 5 locations. Very, very excited. And I met the people on my bike trip to Ireland last year. Yep. They were serious. They kept saying, we want one. And I said, I can't sell you one yet because we don't have an FDD and the financial disclosure document. I said, as soon as we do, you'll be the first ones to get it. Wow. So that deal is closed. We have 2 locations that they're in negotiations right now with landlords, and we should be open in less than 12 months.
That is very exciting. Yeah. So we talked about the bakeries and growing. We talked about consumer packaged goods. We talked about franchising. Your book. We got a signed book. You brought another one. It's beautiful. Talk about the book a little bit. So, do you have a favorite thing to bake in there? Or are they all your kids and you can't choose? Or?
Well, there's 2 books. The first one was the Magnolia Bakery Handbook for the home baker, 150 recipes for the home baker. And the second book, that was called Volume 1. The second book is the Magnolia Bakery Handbook of Icebox Desserts. It's Volume 2. So you get the volume thing, means there's probably more coming eventually. Like I never stop. I'm a little crazy. I'm a bit of a crazy person.
Sorry, we're all crazy.
Right? We're all crazy. And as restaurant people, we're
crazy. You gotta be. There's something I always say, like, people, we joke around, like people call it, I want to open up a restaurant. What's the first thing I should do? And it's like, well, go see your psychiatrist. Yeah. If you come back, but if you've got a good checkout, then you should do it. You have to be a bit crazy. But it's like the only thing you do because you live and you breathe it, and you couldn't imagine doing anything else. And
I've always said it's like going to a party every day. Yeah. Absolutely love what I do. So the cookbooks I do on my own time, nights and weekends, just constantly putting recipes on paper. Yeah. The first book was a lot of Magnolia recipes you would see of products sold in the store. But there was also recipes that I layered in. There were either things I made with my family, grew up with my grandmother, or maybe something that we tried at Magnolia Bakery and it didn't really work in the bakery, because that happens sometimes if it's too complex. The Icebox book is some recipes from Magnolia, a lot of recipes from me. Wow. So I expanded on them because our category at Magnolia is cheesecakes. And then an icebox dessert, most people, not everybody knows what it is. There's several different things. One is cheesecakes because it finishes in your refrigerator. Icebox cake is cookies some kind of cookie with some kind of flavored whipped cream. And you layer them together and the cookies absorb all the cream and they become one and they become a cake. Wow. It's really quite awesome.
Yeah.
The third one is what we call icebox bars. Icebox bars are always, again, I'm thinking about how to develop recipes. It's a crust, some kind of crust. It could be a brownie, it could be a shortbread cookie, it could be graham cracker crust with a whipped cream cheese filling that gets flavored with some kind of an inclusion. It could be oven roasted strawberries. It could be chocolate chips. It could be both. And then some kind of topping. Sometimes there's one that's called a fully loaded.
Yes.
Fully loaded.
Yeah, I was just like hypnotized. I was listening.
So
You're like, and you could use this or you could use both.
So the fully loaded was named for my dad. My dad was the refrigerator junk food junkie.
Great.
And it has a brownie crust with the whipped cream cheese filling with Kit Kat bars and Milky Way chopped up inside, then a layer of fudge icing, then a layer of whipped cream, and then a layer of, on top of that, more chopped up candy bars, fudge sauce, and caramel drizzle.
Nice.
Oh my God. It's so good.
That sounds so good. Yeah. Well, listen, I think this is also part of, you're talking about like brand and authenticity and how do you stay relevant with different generations over time. I mean, I think all of these different aspects, whether it's, you know, the franchising, opening up in different locations, the books, the consumer packaged goods, but the book allows people to kind of connect with you, it seems like, in a personal way. Because yes, there's certain items they can go and they can get at Magnolia, but then there's other items, like you said, that like, you know, connected to your dad, or that, you know, maybe you tried at the bakery and you said they were too complex, but there's something great that someone could bake at home. So it kind of gets people connected in an emotional way to the product.
Well, the recipes all have stories too. So in the first book, I added a recipe that was my grandmother's thumbprint cookies. And thumbprint cookies are, everybody has them. They have a lot of different names. It could be a snowball, a Russian tea cake, a lot of different names. And it's not exactly my grandmother's recipe. And I found out, well, I knew because I changed it a little bit for Magnolia, but I was so proud of the book. I took it to my mom and I was like, look, Mom, Grandma's recipe. And she's looking at it. She's like, that's not Grandma's recipe. As I know it's not, I had to change it because we scaled it up. Of course. And I needed to have a little bit more shelf life, meaning not crumble and break, than what Grandma did at home, which I thought was funny. But, you know, even in our product development, I touched briefly on the banana pudding, which is on United Airlines. You mentioned that one. That is such an incredible product. I had this idea in my brain that what's the problem with banana pudding shelf life? There are two things. One, bananas turn brown. It's what they do. Yeah. You stick them in a refrigerator, they turn brown. They don't have a long time. Maybe you get 24 hours. The second one was the longer banana pudding sits, the softer the cookies get. They start to get mushy. So I was like, what if I just suspend it all? Suspended in time. So I created a freeze to thaw banana pudding. So it uses banana puree in the pudding. Okay. So there's no sliced bananas. You put the wafers in there and then you freeze it. So it suspends it, but you can thaw, it's pudding, not ice cream. So then you can thaw it to pudding texture. It's really quite brilliant.
Amazing.
So I did that about 3 years ago. I took it to my team and was like, guys, this is it. This is the magic. This is what's going to put us on the map everywhere.
You need an episode. Have you watched The Foods That Built America?
No, I haven't seen that one.
There's so many great episodes of the different iconic food brands, you know, everything from, you know, McDonald's and Roy Kroc and the competition of candy and, you know, Hershey's and this brand. But it goes through and it shows you, you know, obviously actors showing like trying to conceive how are we going to prepare this to have the shelf life and going back and forth and coming up with all these different, you know, recipes. And it's amazing the very humble beginnings of these iconic food products and how they were conceptualized and how they were tested and how they've evolved to where they are today. And I'm listening to you tell this story.
The frozen pudding, it's honest. I have a test kitchen right outside my office.
It's amazing.
So my office has glass doors and I show people on my computers like, see, there it is, my test kitchen. And so when the idea pops in, it's like, oh, I know how to do this. I'm going to test it. I do it all by myself. I don't let anyone else get involved because I know in my head what I want it to taste like. Yeah. But you can't explain that to someone. You have to make it.
Yeah.
Then you put it on paper and someone else can make it then.
Yes, indeed.
It's so fun to do that.
That is fun. All right. Non-Magnolia thing that I talked, because I mentioned to you before, but we didn't know each other back then. So my family had an apartment. We lived in the building where there was a humble little shop called It's a Wrap.
Oh, yeah.
And this was in the 90s. I remember my mom being like, I don't even know if they're wrap. That was like the beginning of the wrap trend. It
was.
And she was like, oh my God, have you ever had a wrap? You have to have a wrap. And there are many good wraps. And I found out years later that this incredible wrap shop that it was, on the ground floor of our building was Bobbie Lloyd.
Wow, I loved that shop so much.
It was incredible.
It was so much fun. It was the beginning of the wrap concept. And
Yes.
the way we looked at it is it was not a sandwich. That's the way my head worked.
Mm-hmm.
It was, think of a dinner plate. Like say you have steak, you have cream spinach, and you have oven roasted red balsamic onions. Take those three things and roll it up in a loaf of bread. And so we used a really good loaf of bread. It wasn't a tortilla. We heated them up so they were soft, they were pliable, and everything had fun names. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I think there was, I don't know if he always had, there was like a Thanksgiving one.
There was a Thanksgiving one called the Gobbler.
Yes, the Gobbler.
So
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Oh my
goodness. We did, everything was made from scratch,
so
very
good.
much like Magnolia Bakery. It's
Yeah.
literally everything was made from scratch. All the sauces, we slow roasted whole turkeys.
Yeah.
We roasted our own hams, beef. All of our soups were made in the store. Everything was made there. We had the hot diggity dog. We had the Cruella de Vil. We had so many fun things.
I know. That was fun.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness, there's so much. I could keep going. What about the state of the industry? Let's go back. So we talked about all this stuff. Like, you're obviously, we're friends and you're on the board of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, and we're always getting involved in, different policies and the business climate and, New York City versus opening in other places. And, we don't have to get into all the different challenges in the industry because we know there are countless challenges, and you constantly feel like you are, banging your head against the wall. But, notwithstanding all of that, there has to be something, really pleasurable and fulfilling about being in the industry, to put up with all the craziness, that you have to deal with. What's your take on just the business climate now? And not just in New York City, but kind of like as you've been going to other cities, like the market, there's fluctuations and changing habits of diners and, all this different stuff. Like, are you just optimistic about the market for, yes, Magnolia, but for kind of food services as a whole? Are you cautious about like expanding too much because of like uncertainty in the market? Are you like frustrated, like some people are like, oh, I'd give it up tomorrow, but my whole life is in this. I have no other choice to keep moving. What's like the Bobbie Lloyd take and philosophy on just the state of food service and bakeries?
The one thing about bakeries that's great, they have very low food costs, but they can be a high labor cost. So we're always looking for ways to balance the two of those. We use really good ingredients, good quality ingredients, but I'm always looking for like the better deal. Maybe I buy it in different size packaging. If I can buy it in a bigger bulk, the price per unit was going to cost me less. It's also how we build out our labor model in our stores so that we're more efficient in the way we deliver the product without affecting our customer service, because there's a real fine line to that as well. But I see that we're almost 30 years old.
Yeah.
We've weathered a lot of crazy. Yeah. The one thing about, I don't know of every other business, but Magnolia Bakery has been recession proof.
Yeah.
We've seen that during was it 2008 with the crash, we actually were busier. And as we did our analysis of that, we came up with that what we believed was that people weren't traveling to Europe for summer vacation. Maybe they were giving up their, sending the kids away to camp or different things that they spent big money on, but they would come into Manhattan for the day. They would travel locally, come to the city, take the family out for something special. It's a treat to go to Magnolia Bakery. And so we were actually busier. We are busier than ever right now. We really are. And it's constantly.
I love to hear those stories.
It amazes me all the time, too, because there is more competition out there. There are a lot of dessert brands. People have to eat food every day. You have to eat your breakfast, lunch, and dinner if you eat 3 meals, which means you have choices every day about where to eat those. But you don't eat dessert every day. And so especially during the summer, people have choices. They're going out for gelato and for ice cream and a cookie because all the gigantic cookies are all over the place, which those gigantic cookies are enough for 4 people, right? But one person eats a cookie and it's probably 2,000 calories. And so that's a choice that we have to understand is they're making a choice to come to us as the option instead of to a competitor selling ice cream or cookies or some other dessert. And so we have to continually remain relevant. One of the things I just recently did at our Columbus Avenue location here in New York City, and we're also launching our Hudson Yards location on, I think tomorrow. Wow. This month is a banana pudding bar. And one thing we learned from our customers over the last few years is we always get requests for more flavors of banana pudding, but we only have so much space. And so I was like, how do we meet what they're asking for, giving them what they want and fulfilling that? It's build it on site. And so our banana pudding bar has the option of 4 additional flavors besides our pre-packed classic and monthly flavor. So you can come in, we'll build you a red velvet. You can customize things a little bit too. You don't want that, you want this, fine, you can add it. So we're still in the test mode, we're in pilot mode, but we're getting feedback.
That's a great way to kind of continue to expand all of your options and everything. So obviously when people are going for, cupcakes, cakes, cookies, they're, going to Magnolia for that. What about just like general coffee business? Like, do people because I actually go into the Columbus Avenue store and I'll just to get like a coffee and then sometimes I'll end up buying something else. But like, is that something, maybe it's like neighborhood specific because I feel like Columbus Avenue, I'm sure you get tourists, but it's also obviously more of a neighborhood than like Rock Center.
Yeah. We opened that location in 2008. One of the things I love about it is it covers sort of the 5 things that I look at in real estate selection in no particular order. It's got residential. It's got commercial because there's office buildings close by. It's got entertainment. We've got Lincoln Center, big movie theater. It's got tourism and it's got retail shopping. It's like a mall without a roof over there. So it kind of means you can hit all day parts 7 days a week. So the coffee, there was no coffee business around us when we opened in 2008. And now it's 3 on a block.
I think the Upper West Side may be becoming like the ice cream and gelato and coffee shop capital of New York City.
I was in Amsterdam the other day, and for 3 blocks straight.
It's just another one after another one after another one. I was like, how can
the community support that many? They can't. These things are going to close. They cannot support 3 ice cream shops in one block.
It's tough. And that's what the market is now. You know, people are going in and like you said, but you need to kind of also stay on your toes and continue to stay true to yourself and innovate because there is all this competition coming in. You know, people are always trying to do things.
So we have lost some of our coffee business, but we do have really good coffee.
Yeah. So, no, I think so. That's why it's good. And then I always am like, oh, I should just get this or something.
Yeah, like literally there are 3 of them in one block across the street from us. And I don't even know how they compete with each other because it's all they sell is coffee. Maybe a couple tiny little pastries. But like, come on, coffee people. Pick better locations.
You're awesome. I'm so happy we're friends and you do everything you do.
We've known each other a long time.
I know. Before we finish up, one more thing. Well, I always say that. It's like there'll probably be 2 more things. Being a woman CEO. What's that? I mean, that's one of the things because we've done a lot of panel discussions and I know there's different conferences of like women in the industry and everything. What's your experience? What are your tips? Like I grew up like, I said my grandmother and grandfather in the bakery and I always tell a story. My grandfather had like all these one-liners and he would always be like, I'm the boss, but your grandmother makes all the decisions. And then my aunt took it over, from them and ran it. And I worked there and stuff. So I always saw, especially in bakery, just coincidentally, a lot of kind of like strong women kind of running the show. And yes, my grandfather was there. Yes, I would help, but what's your personal experience been like? Is that something that's like front and center in your leadership style? Are there certain things, and I'm sure you could talk for
forever.
2 days about this, but are there like key highlights and words of wisdom or interesting insights?
I really appreciate that question because I actually mentor a lot of young women who I get it a lot where it's like, I want to open a bakery someday. And I'll ask the question, why? And it's because I like to bake. And it's like, you won't bake anymore.
Yeah.
You're going to be involved in leadership. I have been incredibly lucky in my career to have had great mentors. Most of them have been men because of when I was growing up in the industry.
Yeah.
I went to culinary school in the early 80s. I worked in the restaurant world in the early 80s. It was mostly men. There wasn't a woman that I could find that could mentor me.
Yeah.
And so even now I have two really incredible advisors who, when I became CEO, I went to our PE firm and said, I need somebody to help guide me as a CEO so that I can be a better leader. Because I'm going to be I'm going to be giving up all these things I've been doing for many years when we were small and scrappy. And I need to know how to do that. And so they found me somebody who's really wonderful, a guy, but he's been a great guide in my journey as a CEO. It really is about leadership. It's about listening. It's about knowing when to solve the difficult problems by listening to people. And then years of experience. I like to jokingly say that I have my PhD in restaurant management because I opened my first restaurant in the early mid 1980s. And I did it through an SBA loan. And then I sold it 2 years later through bankruptcy. Critically acclaimed restaurant. But I made all the mistakes that a first-time restaurant owner makes. I was too bossy. I didn't know how to be a leader. I always said that the word no didn't exist. And as a leader in a company, you do have to know when to say no.
Yeah.
Not everything is the right direction and the right move to make. And so you really have to analyze, but you also have to have a bias for action.
Yeah.
And I use this a lot with my team, is that sometimes you make a decision without all the information in front of you, and you have to be 100% convicted and do it and go forward. My banana pudding bar at our Columbus Avenue store is the perfect example. I was like, let's just do it. Let's test it. Let's see how it goes. If it doesn't work, no loss.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice to people too, is like, listen, seek advice.
Yeah.
Because you don't have all the answers yourself. And ask people in the industry. That's why I'm on the Hospitality Alliance board.
Yeah.
We have resources. We have people we can ask and speak to because we don't know everything.
It's such a people business, you know, and it's all about mentoring. I mean, one of the things we've been trying to do is bring people together to have these kinds of conversations. And part of, reason we have this show is to hear from people like you and others and tips, what they've learned along the way, what works, what doesn't work, and also just how to respond, whether something works or something doesn't work, and move forward.
Yeah. Well, even I was talking about the CPG when we talked about doing CPG first within Magnolia Bakery with the PE firm. I'm a hospitality girl. Yeah. I grew up in the restaurant business. I don't know anything about CPG. And that's when I said, I need an advisor. I need someone that I can talk to on a weekly basis, that I can ask questions to at any time, that can help me and guide me in this process. Otherwise, might not be so successful.
So really going out and finding people that you can lean on, that can give you advice and mentor you. And the mentorship never ends. I mean, it sounds like even at your level, you're still, seeking out mentors and getting feedback.
Oh, I have a franchise mentor now who was a CEO of a very large franchise company in the food industry. So, and he's retired and he is now my advisor.
Got it.
So we need that expertise.
Well, listen, if we can find a way to make ourselves distant relatives so my daughter can work, at underage and just get some experience, she would be more than happy. But she has to start washing dishes, as I tell her.
That's exactly where you got to start.
Otherwise, you can never do anything else. Bobbie, thank you for coming on the show.
That was fun. Thank you.
I know. And we're going to bake something soon, and we'll drop it off. Good. And thank you to you. It's always nice to see your wonderful family in the neighborhood and see everything that you're doing. And we will talk soon. This has been another episode of Hospitality and Politics, powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. I'm Andrew Ridgey. My guest was the one and only Bobbie Lloyd, Chief Baking Officer of Magnolia Bakery. Thanks, Bobbie.
My pleasure. Thank you.